Salvete, all you Latin lovers out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor.
Hold on. Pause while I look up what that is. Salvete. Okay. A word that can refer to different things depending on context. It is the plural imperative form of salvare, meaning to save or to rescue.
I don't know. I when I looked it up, it was just hello, but when you say hello to more than one person.
Oh. All right.
And by Latin lovers, I mean people who love Latin, not like steamy Latin lovers.
I mean, you guys can listen too. It's okay.
Yeah, for sure. Always.
Although it sounds like you might have better things to do.
Right, hopefully. But this is Undeclared Bajor, the best Star Trek DS9 discussion podcast. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Yo.
Today we're going to discuss Star Trek DS9 Season 7, Episode 16, Inter Arma Enim Sealant Legis. Alternate title, E Pluribus Sloanum.
Huh.
That's all I got. This episode originally aired March 3rd, 1999. It was written by Ronald D. Moore and directed by David Livingston. Have we seen David Livingston lately? I mean, he's an old pro.
Well, let's see when his most recent one was. This is his last one of this show.
Sure.
But I feel like we're going to run into a lot of those
right.
as we're, approaching the end. But let's see. David Livingston, what have you done? What have you done for us lately, David? His last one before this was Change of Heart, Season 6, Episode 16.
Ah, yes. Which one was that?
Change of Heart is the one where Worf is supposed to leave Dax in the jungle, and then he doesn't.
Yeah.
In fact, the one he does before that is You Are Cordially Invited. So I think we said at the time, he's getting these heavy Worf and Dax episodes.
So I guess there's no more Worf and Dax. Now he's got to find a new groove or something.
Yep. Got to find a niche. His niche is Romulans? I don't know.
Sure. And Sarah Lofton is not in the episode.
Sarah Lofton is not in the episode. Also, another main character appears in the episode for exactly 6 seconds.
Ooh. Well, I mean, I don't remember seeing Quark at all.
I was going to get to that next. Quark is not in the episode at all either. But yeah,
I know Esri has the really quick scene in the hallway.
Yeah, that's the one. She gets 6 seconds in the episode and then she's gone.
This is definitely a one character focused episode.
Yeah, I mean, unless you count Admiral Ross, maybe he gets some focus here. But yeah.
Did you have anything else to say about Quark, or just that he's not in the episode?
No, he was just the other one that's not in the episode.
Gotcha. And no more in either, I don't think. So
he's hanging out with Quark. What can you do?
Right. But we will be discussing spoilers up through this episode. And so stuff happens in this episode. So I guess there's some kind of spoilery stuff. But not after this episode. So it is safe to watch along with us if this is your first time watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine. But that only applies to Star Trek Deep Space Nine. We might also spoil other stuff because we don't care. So watch out.
Yeah.
But anyway, title review. How would you rate the title?
Okay, I mean, memorability. Yeah, I guess I know which episode you're talking about here.
Right.
And if I watch the episode, I definitely can, they say the title pretty prominently in the episode, although I'm not sure that I think they pronounced it correctly, but whatever.
Yeah.
And Ronald T. Moore, who came up with the title, is quoted in here as saying, hey, I think this is actually, it fits with the themes of the episode really well.
Sure.
And I think that's also true. So, I mean, by our normal criteria, I think it's probably a pretty decent title. I don't like it. I dislike this title. It annoys
pretentious.
Me. Yeah.
And it's memorability only works one way. If you were to say what's that episode with the Latin title, I might have a hard time remembering what the actual title is.
I'm this is one that I feel like I've actually always been able to remember pretty solidly.
Hmm.
I mean, I couldn't, if you said, what's the one with the Latin title? Because according to the wiki, this is one of 17 episodes with a title derived from Latin. But, but yeah.
But relevance, at least, pretty high, so.
Yeah, for sure. I had to look up which other episodes were derived from Latin. You got Sub Rosa in Next Generation.
Oh, sure.
Dramatis Personae. Alter Ego in Voyager, which I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, Sub Rosa is not a Deep Space Nine episode, right?
No, this is, all of Star Trek.
Okay.
Ex Post Facto is a Voyager episode. There's a Discovery episode called CV Possum Parabellum.
Huh.
I don't remember if I've seen that Discovery episode. Hold on, let's see. It's season 1, so I guess I must have, yeah. And there's some Picard episodes. Et in Arcadia Ego in season 1. And Vox in season 3.
Oh, right. Sure.
So, there you go.
So Star Trek is classy. It does Latin sometimes.
Yeah, every now and then. Apparently the working title of this episode was Untitled Bashir, which, I don't know, maybe I would have gone with that.
I don't know if that really counts as a working title, but...
Nah, I probably wouldn't. Also, Ira Stephen Bear, when asked about this title, is like, I think Ron was trying to get even with Hans Beimler and me for Wrongs Darker Than Death or Night. Or maybe he was looking to top everyone else, so he thought, Latin. And Ronald D. Moore himself says he came up with the title when he was at a bookstore looking around, and he found a copy of a book by William Rehnquist dealing with the prerogative of habeas corpus and its suspension during the American Civil War. And on the book jacket, Moore discovered a blurb in which Abraham Lincoln's suspension of the writ of habeas corpus is described as a classic case of the old Roman dictum inter arma silent leges. And he was like, hey, that's a great episode name. And it goes with like the theme that we got going here. So he went to the show's research consultant and he was like, hey, we need to make sure that we've got the right Latin for this. I don't want to trust some random book that I found. And so Joan Pierce, the research consultant, provided the slightly longer version and was like, and you can just, like, whatever order you prefer the words in is fine because word order does not matter in Latin. And so he's like, okay. And he just, like, moved him around until he's like, yeah, that sounds good.
All right. I guess I'd have to take their word for that. But
yeah, I don't. He seems to have partially come to regret it in later years, as he's quoted in here saying, people keep bugging me about, what the hell does this mean? What is this title of yours? I took a perverse glee in the fact, but the Voyager guys looked at me like I was crazy, and no one knew how to pronounce it, but we were going to stick with it.
I mean, they say what it means in the episode.
Yeah.
Did you watch the episode?
I started reading some of these notes as I was watching the episode, and it kind of bugged me that, like, nowhere in the notes did it actually talk about what the meaning of the sentence was. And then when I got to the end of the episode, I was like, oh, that's why, because it's right there in the episode.
Right.
Okay.
In this episode, we start with a meeting in the ward room, which I assume is the Federation Romulan Klingon Bajoran Coordinating Council meeting for Deep Space Nine.
I don't know. They're just hanging out, you know. They seem to have a weekly chill sesh.
Yeah, maybe they get together for like coffee and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, hey, let's go over some." I don't know. But Senator Kretak, who apparently has not been kicked out of Bajoran space after her sneaky attempt to take over a whole Bajoran moon, is complaining that it takes the maintenance crews on Deep Space Nine forever to get around to fixing Romulan ships.
And I don't know if you noticed that Senator Kretak has changed actresses in this appearance.
Well, okay, I didn't notice that, but then I saw in the credits it was Adrienne Barbeau or whatever her name is.
Yeah.
And I definitely know her as an actress. I was like, wait, did she play Kretak last time? And I didn't notice, but...
No, originally it was a lady named Megan Cole, and it doesn't sound, from what I'm reading in here, like Megan Cole wasn't available or whatever. They were just like, let's get somebody else. So, like, they say in here that, like, Ron D. Morris says, yeah, Adrienne was great. She brought something different to the role, a certain sympathy and vulnerability that worked for the character in this episode. You wanted to like Kretak more in this than you had in the other 2 episodes that she was in, and that made you feel bad that she was going down at the end. So, yeah, it sounds like she's intentionally like kind of has a different personality here, and so they're like, we'll get somebody else.
I mean, if you hadn't told me that it was a different actress, I would have just assumed it was the same actress. So
yeah, I think I did assume that until I read this, and then I was like, oh no, okay, I can see it when I actually think about it. But yeah, I was, or either I would have assumed it was the same actress, or I would have assumed like, oh, did they like switch senators? Am I not remembering the name of the senator from the previous one correctly? Because the Romulans can do stuff like that. It's
right.
fine.
Yeah, like I said, I'm still not clear how she's still allowed to like be around after that whole kerfuffle. But
it does seem a little bit, and like Kira is perfectly cool with having these meetings. She's like, oh hey, and you're heading out of town next week, right? Like I feel like there should be some hostility remaining here, but maybe they got over that like months ago when these meetings first started, and we just didn't get to see that part of it.
They just buried the hatchet and moved on. I don't know.
Yeah, but according to David Livingston, Adrienne Barbeau had been in to read for previous Star Trek episodes, and when she came in for this one, they were just like, "Oh, nailed it! We want her for this." So,
I mean, you see her in a lot of stuff, so she's a pretty good actress. She's got like a pretty distinctive like look and style and stuff. So
yeah.
But Chief O'Brien says, "Yeah, we prioritize the ships that have the greatest need." And Kretak says, but it always seems to be the Klingon ships that have the greatest need. And Worf is like, well, that's because Klingons are badasses. We fight hard and don't worry about taking damage like a bunch of wussy Romulans. And then after some verbal barbs from Kretak, Kira tells O'Brien to fix the Romulan ships so Kretak will stop whining. And then Odo says, okay, well, if you're going to bring your ships here, we got a bunch of Klingons on the station right now, so could you just, like, keep your people away until they leave? And then Kretak says, sure, our soldiers are professionals, unlike some species I won't name.
Yeah. I do like the note that it's like, Kira's like, okay, we're going to fix these Romulan ships, they've been waiting a while, and Orion's like, well, I mean, that's fine. I can do that. But someone's got to explain to General Martok why his, like, personal ship is not getting fixed. And Kira's like, Worf, that's on you.
Right.
Enjoy that.
I mean, that's obviously Worf's job. Like, Chief O'Brien's not going to go do that. Then Kira wraps up the meeting by reminding everyone that Senator Kretak is going to be at a conference on Romulus next week. But Subcommander Valal will fill in for her. And you'll have to be patient with Valal. He or she is not as good at sick burns as Kretak is.
Apparently we will see Valal in upcoming episodes. I guess, spoiler.
Fun.
So he does seem to, I guess, take her place in this.
And guess who else is coming to this conference on Romulus? Dr. Bashir. He chats about it with Garrick, who does not have fond memories of his past assignment on Romulus.
I feel like in the past he talked about it in a positive way, being like, a gardener or whatever. Now he's like, ugh, Romulus.
Well, he does say it's like, this is the only time my cover job was actually more enjoyable than the assignment itself. So maybe he just had a really good time gardening. But he does point out this conference sounds like a good opportunity for the Federation to do some spying. And Bashir says, no, we can't spy on the Romulans. They're our friends. Allies never spy on each other, right?
No, yeah, obviously.
But Garrick chides Bashir for being so naive. So Bashir promises to become more cynical, to look gift horses squarely in the mouth, and to find clouds in every silver lining. And Garrick says, if only you meant it.
I do love the delivery on that by both of them. Like, this is a great moment between the two.
Yep. Sadly, this is all the Garrick we get this episode. Later, Bashir is comfy in bed when he's awakened by the strange sensation that somebody is creepily sitting in the dark staring at him.
Yeah, I'm often awakened by that.
It's Sloan. And Bashir reacts the way anyone would react, waking up in the middle of the night with someone in their bedroom staring at them. With mild confusion. Sloan tells Bashir the reason for his late night visit. Section 31 has an assignment for you. Bashir says he could get security down here in 30 seconds, and Sloan says he suspects Bashir won't be able to communicate with anyone outside this room, which sounds like a bluff, but whatever.
Maybe. I don't know.
Bashir says he could scream for help, but Sloan says, yeah, you could do that, but that would make you look dumb, and you're too vain for that.
If you want to look like a big girl. And Bashir's like, oh, that's a solid point. I don't want to look like a girl. Okay.
Yep. He wins. Bashir's like, yeah, you got me there. Anyway, since you passed the Section 31 entrance test last season, it's finally time for your first assignment. Even though you said you don't want the job, we still gave it to you.
Yeah, and in the previous episode, Cisco was like, hey, next time they come to you with a job, be like, yeah, I totally want to do that job. And then we'll get him. But apparently he has forgotten that because he's like, no, I don't want your dirty, stinking job.
Yep. But Sloan is like, yeah, so we want you to go to this conference on Romulus and do some spying. He's like, spying? Like what? He's like, just, look around, see what's going on, get a feel for things. So he's like, so just stuff everyone there is going to naturally do anyway? I mean, it seems like you could have just found me after I got back and, asked me what I saw.
No, it's got to be an official mission.
Right. And Sloan lays out the future of the Alpha Quadrant after the Dominion War as he sees it, which is the Dominion will be back in the Gamma Quadrant and possibly being ruled by Odo, the one surviving changeling. Cardassia will be occupied. The Klingons will pretty much be fixing all their broken ships for the next 10 years.
Yeah, because they don't, mess with, they don't care if they get damage, right? So
right. This was very cleverly set up earlier in the episode. The two powers left will be the Federation and the Romulan Empire. And Bashir says, this war is not over and you're already planning for the next war. And Sloan gets a big smile on his face. He's like, yes, exactly. We're on the same page.
I'm really glad that you get it. A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I feel like what should have happened here is Bashir should have been like, what about the Tholians and the Breen and
the Breen and
there's lots of other groups of people that might want to get involved.
The Zenkethi?
Yeah, the Zenkethi. They're jerks apparently.
Yeah, those guys are troublemakers. But no, I guess they'll all also be depleted from the Dominion War or something. I don't know.
The Gorn, the Nyberite Alliance. We heard about them. I don't know what they do except for they have ships.
Sloan didn't want to go through the whole list, but all that's going to be left is the Federation and the Romulans. And then he says, I hope your report on the conference is as succinct. And it's like, wait, do you want a succinct report? Or
yeah, he didn't want details. He just wants
thorough report.
A high-level overview. There were Romulans there.
Yeah.
Done.
Confirmed. Romulans live on Romulus.
I'm glad we sorted that out.
Bashir says, no, I don't work for you. Although, admittedly, it will be difficult to go to the conference and not at least accidentally observe some stuff.
But I'm not telling you what I see.
Sloan says, oh, you will work for me because you love secrets. And I am a man of secrets. You'll work for me to learn all the stuff I know. And then he runs out the door. And then Bashir grabs a phaser and runs after him. But there's nobody outside but Ezri, who is not happy to have a phaser shoved in her face.
I mean, yeah, who would be, honestly?
Naturally, Bashir goes and reports the encounter with Cisco, who, as we mentioned, should be like, hey, remember last time we encountered Sloan and I told you if he ever comes back with an assignment, you should accept it so we could get an inside man in Section 31? And then Bashir presumably would be like, oh, damn it, that's right, my bad.
He seems to assume that I'm taking the assignment anyway, so I guess we can still do that.
Yep. But Cisco's like, okay, well, let's do that plan now. You go to the conference and look around or whatever, and then use it to get your foot in the door of Section 31. The plan we came up with a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then Cisco says he told Starfleet Command about Section 31, and they were like, oh, what? Section 31? That doesn't sound right. We'll look into that. But then they didn't look into it, which makes Cisco suspicious of how unsanctioned Section 31 actually is.
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to sound a little bit sanctioned, is all I'm saying. So
yeah. But Bashir says, okay, so you want me to pretend I want to work for Section 31, but actually I'll be spying on them. And then Cisco's like, oh, God, yes. You really are the worst spy.
I like Bashir's initial thing is like, I don't think I should go to this conference. They might somehow find a way to make me spy.
Right.
And Sisko's like, well, I mean, we promised we would send the Federation's leading expert on Dominion biogenic weapons and
Ketracel White.
And Ketracel White. And he's like, so that is you, unless you didn't tell me and someone else like learned more about that stuff recently.
Yep. Yeah, that feels a little bit like an unnecessary step to just not go to the conference. I think maybe he's all conferenced out. As we've discussed, they go to a lot of conferences in this show. And for the first time, we're actually getting to see one of these conferences. So that's got to be some kind of milestone, right? But so Bashir rides to the conference aboard the USS Bellerophon, the Slayer of Chimera. Yep. So good name for a ship in the Dominion War, which is an Intrepid class ship, allowing, I assume, for some effects shots and sets to be easily reused.
Yeah, apparently, according to this is the only appearance of an Intrepid class starship outside of Voyager, unless you count like an image appearing on the screen one time in a different episode. It'd be like, here's what Intrepid class ships look like. But yes, so the establishing shot is just like a shot of Voyager flying by that they use for this. To the point, the note says, to the point that you can see the NCC 74656 on the hull that is Voyager's numbers. Nice. So apparently they didn't even go to much trouble on that. It says originally the idea was that this would be a Defiant class ship, and then they could just reuse Defiant sets. And Ronald D. Moore was like, hey, why don't we make it like an Intrepid class ship, and then all of our stuff won't look as samey as every other episode that reuses Defiant sets, but we can still just like go across the hall to the Voyager production and use their stuff, and we'll shoot on their sets.
You know, good idea. I think those sets look kind of like nice and different, and also the Defiant sets are just kind of like cramped looking.
Yeah, they're intentionally cramped looking. That makes sense for the Defiant, but yeah, for like this sort of trip, it does seem like it would be a weird choice. And he says, I feel like a bigger starship would be different and make the missions seem more important. But also we could still save money by not having to build a whole new set for a new ship. So
I think that was some smart thinking by Ronald D. Moore there.
They cut a deal with the Voyager folks to like when they were shooting on a different soundstage, they went over and used Voyager's mess hall, the low-ranking crewman's quarters, and the conference room, where you can also see the bridge just outside the doors.
Nice.
Although there's one fun note that it's like, because they are using Voyager's mess hall, in the actual Voyager show, it's established that like the mess hall where we see them eat a lot is actually the captain's dining room. And in one of the early episodes of the show, like Janeway walks in and like Neelix is cooking stuff, and she's like, "What the heck? What are you doing here?" And he's like, "I'm making some food." And she's like, the diagram of the ship clearly labels this as the captain's dining room. Like, this is my space. And
so that big room is just for the captain?
Yeah, I guess I don't know if it's like the whole giant room is for the captain, or if it's just the part that he turned into a cooking area is for the captain.
Okay.
But it notes that, like, you know, in a normal Intrepid class ship, then there would be like a wall of replicators in the mess hall. But when they're having, you know, their little party in the mess hall here, you can see that the galley is still there because this is still the same set as the Voyager set. So it's like, it doesn't really make sense for there to be a galley back there on this ship, but there is.
Maybe just someone on the Bellerophon had the same idea or something. I don't know. But speaking of which, yeah, the passengers hang out in this room, whatever it is, and enjoy some Romulan ale. And Admiral Ross is there and seems to find the ale a little strong. But he turns down an offer for something else, and Bashir says, "Good for you, never say die," which Senator Kretak finds to be an interesting expression, and she wonders what it means, because I guess it's not obvious.
Why are humans not allowed to say die? It's like, taking it literally.
Are you allowed to order your admiral to not say die like that?
So, 2 notes on this section.
Uh-huh.
It notes that Romulan ale and it being illegal goes all the way back to Wrath of Khan.
Sure.
But now, possibly for the first time since then, it is legal, so everyone's drinking up. By the time of Star Trek Nemesis, it will again be illegal, specifically mentioned in the movie, I guess. So that's a shame. But also, as Sloan is about to walk in, I don't want to steal your thunder and talk about where Never Say Die comes from, but he doesn't actually cite the specific source, and it mentions in here that the 19th century poem Sloan refers to as the source of Never Say Die is The Merchant of Venice, A Legend of Italy by Richard Harris Barham, writing under the pseudonym Thomas Ingoldsby. There's a D in there so yeah, if anyone wanted to go out and find that, there you go.
It's good to make your pen name harder to say than your real name.
Yeah, right?
But yeah, as you mentioned, someone jumps in to explain who is Sloan undercover as Wendell Greer, assistant director of the Department of Cartography and etymology enthusiast, although I don't really know if this falls under etymology or not when you're talking
I was thinking
about
the same
whole
thing.
phrase.
It's not like a word origin. This is, but whatever. He can be interested in multiple things. It's fine.
Yes. And Wendell Greer has heard of Dr. Bashir, and he asks Bashir if they can have a word. And as they walk off, I assume Kretak thinks to herself, what a weird guy. I wonder what his deal is.
Yeah, it is weird to just jump into the conversation and offer that up and be like, now I would like to leave the conversation. Goodbye. Right.
Just be as conspicuous and weird as possible. That's Spy 101.
I mean, he plays the character really well, and I love he's showing some range here where he's like, look at me, I'm a nerd, and they've even given him the cover name that is like Wendell Greer is like the nerdiest name also, where you're just like, sure. I believe this guy loves maps. Yeah.
he likes getting into his character.
Good for him.
But Sloan tells Bashir not to act so surprised to see him, and Bashir says, well, maybe if you would tell me before you show up, I wouldn't.
Well, he's given him some on-the-job training to hide his reactions and stuff.
Sure.
So if he told him, then that would defeat the point.
So Sloan tells Bashir there's a pad in his quarters, and he should read up and meet with him later. So again, Sloan just sneaking into his private quarters.
Which seems to me like an unnecessary risk. You could have been like, I emailed you a file, like read that. It's bizarre that he's like, I'm going to like, one of the most advanced ships in the Federation is the Intrepid class at this point, right? He's like, I'm going to circumvent security specifically so I can just like drop a pad in this guy's room to prove to him how like sneaky I am.
Yep. He's just flexing. Later, Bashir tells Admiral Ross what's going on, and I don't know why Ross has an office in the Bellerophon. Is he the commanding officer of the Bellerophon?
I mean, he's an admiral, so...
Is this just like a guest office they keep for like, high-ranking brass or something?
He kicked the captain out of his ready room and was like, that's mine now for this trip. Goodbye.
He's like, I am the captain now. But yeah, Ross basically says, well, let's just let him be. If we pull him from the conference, then we lose our opportunity to infiltrate Section 31. So let's just leave him alone and see what he gets up to. And then later, Sloan gives Bashir a quiz on important Romulan figures, notably Koval, chairman of the Tal Shiar, suspected of plotting the assassination of Vice Admiral Fujisaki last year. Unfortunately, whatever proof there is in Koval's private database. Let me just mention that real fast and move along. Koval apparently has not been elevated to the Romulan government's continuing committee, as would be typical for the head of the Tal Shiar, possibly due to his opposition to the alliance with the Federation. This leaves a seat open which pro-alliance Senator Kretak has been campaigning for. Sloan says there's also a rumor that Koval may be afflicted with something called Tuvan syndrome. Or Tuvin syndrome or something.
Tuvok syndrome, yeah.
Yeah, Tuvok syndrome. Some kind of degenerative neurological condition. Sloan wants Bashir to see if he can make a definitive diagnosis. Bashir deduces that Sloan wants to use the Tuvin syndrome diagnosis to undermine Koval politically and keep him off the continuing committee. He reminds Sloan that interfering with the internal matters of a sovereign power is explicitly forbidden by the Federation Charter. And Sloan says, yes, that's what we're all about here at Section 31, following the rules. Thank you for the reminder.
I'm glad you pointed that out, Doc. We'll fix that right off.
And then he spells out that if Koval is elevated, it would put the alliance with the Romulans in jeopardy, and that could be a disaster for the war. He offers to skip the rest of the ends justify the means speech if Bashir will skip his we must do what's right speech. Down on Romulus, there's a swanky reception where everybody wears their dress uniforms. Dr. Bashir pours himself a drink and is abruptly approached by Koval himself. Hey, aren't you Dr. Julian Bashir, the expert on the Dominion's biogenic weapons? Hey, I have some questions about the quickening virus, from that episode, The Quickening. And then Bashir's like, yeah, sadly, we still haven't found a vaccine yet. And Koval's like, that's okay, I don't care about vaccines. Do you know how to introduce the virus into a population? And Bashir's like, yeah, I guess.
I mean, yeah, sure. That does seem like it would be the easier of the two, right?
Although I wouldn't recommend doing that against the Dominion because they invented the virus, and so...
Yeah, I would assume that they have a cure.
They're presumably more equipped to, fight it than we are.
Yeah, even if they don't have a cure, having developed the virus, they could probably develop the cure.
Yeah.
The note here is
they probably know the RNA sequences or whatever.
Yeah. The note is that Koval calls it the quickening. It's actually the Teplon Blight, but it is from that episode, the quickening. And at some point, Neural and Bashir in the episode both state that the quickening occurred on Baranus 3. However, that contradicts the previous episode. In that episode, Baranus 3 is the planet that Bashir had been on previously, where he cured of something super fast, and that was why he's like, oh, I can take care of this, no problem.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
Ronald D. Moore, pay attention. But yeah, Koval's like, okay, cool, I look forward to hearing all about it, and he walks off. And then Senator Kretak comes up to Bashir and says, wow, Koval doesn't usually come up and talk to people like that. Starfleet Intelligence should recruit you immediately. And Bashir's like, yeah, ha, 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 ha. And they talk a little bit about politics that we already know. And then later, Bashir gives his lecture about the quickening virus, or whatever that virus is called. Did they at least call it the quickening when, you quicken and you get sick from the virus?
No, I'm pretty sure in the episode, I think they just call it the blight or something, but quickening is what happens. Yeah. When you quicken,
right,
it activates or becomes active or whatever. I don't know that I have to go back. I just watched that episode not long ago again, and now I don't recall offhand.
So they basically just stole the name of the virus from the episode.
Yeah.
I guess you could make up some elaborate scenario where that other planet actually had a different virus, and that virus was called the Quickening.
That would have been a heck of a coincidence, yeah.
But, so Koval listens intently to this speech, or this lecture. Afterwards, Sloan comes up to Bashir and says, hey, did you see Koval sitting there? And Bashir says, yeah, I'm a little worried. He was asking me some really disturbing questions about the virus earlier. And then Sloan's like, yeah, the head of the Chal Shiar wants to get his hands on a bioweapon. I'm shocked.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, I'm shocked. What about his health, though? Did you make a diagnosis? And Bashir says he may have Tuvin syndrome, but if he does, it's only the early stages. He probably has 10 to 15 years before he starts to lose motor skills and a life expectancy of 20 to 25 years. Yes, says Sloan. But could it suddenly accelerate? Maybe, says Bashir. And hypothetically, could we make it accelerate? And then Bashir says, I don't know what you're talking about. Or I don't know what you're asking.
Man.
Are you serious?
You're not that dumb.
Then Bashir goes and talks to Ross, who says he does agree with Sloan that Kretak is preferable to Koval on the continuing committee, because Kretak is at least a patriot. Koval won't stop until the Romulan flag is flying over Earth.
Which sounds patriotic to me.
Yeah, that sounds pretty patriotic.
I feel like what's actually happening here is like we got like a Freudian slip where he's like, Kretak is a patriot. This Koval guy, he's like a traitor.
Yeah, it's hard to interpret what it's like. He's a patriot. She's a patriot for the Federation. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Ross wonders if Sloan may have another accomplice they don't know about, which leads Bashir to a brilliant deduction. Sloan's plan, as he very subtly alluded to, is to kill Koval by accelerating his Tuvin syndrome. This can only be done by exposing him to Nadion radiation, another in the long list of Star Trek radiations.
You can never have enough. I wonder if Nadion has ever come up before. Hold on.
Is it Ronald D. Moore is the one who likes to pull out these deep cuts, right? So maybe it is.
Yeah, it could be. Oh yeah, okay. This has been it's been referenced either after or before this. Let's see. During the occupation of Bajor, Dr. Krell Moset exposed Tabor's grandfather to Nadion radiation as part of his medical experiments. That's from an episode of Voyager.
Okay, I was like...
that had not yet aired at this point.
I was like, is that from a book or something?
A particle pulse analyzed by Data and Geordi while verifying the origin of a Type 3 phaser rifle was later determined to be Romulan in origin in a Next Generation episode. It doesn't mention Nadion. Oh, it's a rapid Nadion pulse in that case.
Ah, okay.
All right. No, that's in a future episode of this show. So we'll come up again before the end of this.
But it did come up in Next Generation, so...
Yeah, the word has popped up somewhere. A Nadion is an artificially generated particle, is the headline of this article.
Is that a real thing or just a Star Trek thing?
I think it must be a Star Trek thing. The Star Trek The Next Generation Technical Manual, hey, I used to have that book, describes Nadions as unique particles capable of liberating atomic nuclei, disrupting nuclear forces. Atomic nuclei, you say?
Sure. But yeah, anyway, to get close enough to Koval to shoot some Nadion radiation at him, you'd have to get someone on the inside. That is, a Romulan. And then I imagine that Ross thinks, oh, thank goodness, I was going to have to spoon feed him this whole thing. But Ross refuses to tip off the Romulans to the possible assassination plot because then he'd have to explain about Section 31, and then all hell would break loose. So he tells Bashir to just sit tight and wait for further instructions. But then Bashir is hanging out back on the Bellerophon when he overhears two officers talking about Admiral Ross suddenly suffering from an aneurysm and being confined to sickbay. And look who's sitting right there, looking all suspicious. It's Sloan. This leaves Bashir with nobody to talk to, so he decides to go to Senator Kretak for some reason.
I don't know if it's specifically these two officers, but in the credits, two Bellerophon officers are shown to be named Hickam and Wheeler, which this notes is the name of two military airfields in Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so...
Wow. Was that intentional, or...
who knows?
But yeah, so Senator Kretak, who, let's remember, is the person Sloan seems to be working so hard to elevate to the continuing committee, so there's no chance that she's Sloan's secret Romulan agent.
I mean, Bashir knows her too well for that, or something.
Bashir's spy skills are just amazing.
I mean, Garrick told him earlier in the episode, like, to stop trusting so much stuff. But he has not yet. He's not looking those gift horses in the mouth yet.
Right.
And it's a problem.
I think that might be the point of the episode, is he's not taking any of Garrick's advice. But yeah, Bashir tells Kretak that Sloan said something about Koval having a secret personal database. Sloan only mentioned it very briefly, but I'm super smart, so I picked up on it and I remembered it. Maybe this personal database has a list of potential spies. That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard, is what Kretak should have said. First, if Koval has a list of suspected agents, then he's already way ahead of us and doesn't need our help. Second, I'd have to be a massive idiot to let you talk me into breaching state secrets based solely on this unverifiable story you just told me.
It's true. It's hard to verify any of this.
Why don't you let me, as an actual insider and expert on the inner workings of the Romulan stuff, proceed in a much less stupid way, like bring this to some people I trust and, maybe raise some security or something. But no, instead Kretak is like, okay, sure, let me go commit treason for no reason.
I mean, that's what I do.
Then Bashir meets with Sloan and says, you know what? I'm not sure that Koval has Tuvin syndrome. Which, well, either he does or he doesn't. Either way, we might as well try shooting some of that Nadion radiation at him. I mean, it's not going to make him healthier, right?
Well, the thing was, in the earlier scene, Bashir's like, okay, look, he does have these indicators that could be Tuvin syndrome, but it could also be a bunch of other things. And Sloan just pushes forward with well, it must be Tuvin syndrome. So how can we base that? And then when Bashir comes back and he's like, yeah, you know what? I don't know if it is Tuvin syndrome. He's like, but you were so sure before. And I was like, no, he wasn't actually.
Yeah. But, Sloan asks if a skin sample would help Bashir make his diagnosis. And he says he can spray some micro adhesive on Bashir's hand so that next time he shakes hands with Koval, he'll get some skin cells to look at. Now, at this point, supposedly, Bashir is trying to prevent Koval from being assassinated. So, shouldn't the obvious thing to do just to be do nothing and just be like, oh, I never ran into him again? Or just lie and say, yep, I got those skin cells, and it turns out no Tuvin syndrome.
Get some skin cells from some random other Romulan and be like, yeah, no, I don't know.
No Tuvin syndrome here.
It turns out that guy does have Tuvin syndrome. That would be unfortunate.
It's like, oh my gosh, I gotta tell this guy. Actually, there was really no point in acting all uncertain. He could have just said, I saw Koval doing a backflip earlier, and now I'm convinced he doesn't have Tuvin syndrome. But, again, just Bashir's... This is not the life that Bashir was cut out for.
No, not really.
I think we're learning. But no, Bashir just walks right up to Koval and is like, hey there, Koval, put her there. And then Koval looks at him like, okay.
This is real strange, but okay.
Yeah. And then Koval fully knows what's going on, presumably.
I mean, yeah.
Also. And I think this is not an act. He's like, oh my god, this guy.
He's the head of the Obsidian Order, and as we will find out, a double agent. So, yeah, he's probably just like, oh, the tradecraft is so bad. I don't even want to, give you... I don't want to make you think, let you win this, because you need to try harder, my man.
This makes me look stupid, shaking your hand. But Koval's like, okay, actually, since I ran into you, let's go somewhere private for a chat. That's always a good thing to do in this type of situation.
Yeah, when you're on a, strange planet, and you're a foreigner there, and you're actively involved in espionage, you should 100% just wander off, and leave any sort of backup or help that you might have.
Just go off to a second location with a known spy operative.
Yeah. Nothing wrong can ever happen.
Yeah. So Koval takes him to a little room with a chair in it. Koval says he wants to know why Bashir is really on Romulus, who he's working for, and who's helping him. And then some goons put blinky things on Bashir's head while Koval says, I'm going to find out everything you know. And then we cut to later when Koval has not found out everything Bashir knows.
Nope.
Because Bashir's genetically engineered brain is immune to the blinking things. Or else...
Or maybe it wasn't. Yeah.
This is just made up by Koval. So Koval's like, okay, look, can you just tell me what I want to know? And Bashir says, well, you haven't asked me any questions.
We were just going to look in your brain and get it all. We didn't think we had to talk.
I mean, Koval did say all the things he wants to know.
Oh, that's true. He had a whole list.
He wants to know, why he's really on Romulus, who he's working for, and who's helping him. But I guess he didn't phrase it in the form of a question, so technically Bashir is correct. I don't know.
Pay better attention, Doc. Come on.
Then they drag Bashir in front of the continuing committee with the Praetor right there, where Kretak is also sitting, after having gotten caught trying to hack into the Tal Shiar database. So Bashir's like, okay, and then he tells them the whole story. Then the Praetor asks Kretak why she didn't just come to him with this, and she says she was worried about this Section 31 stuff getting out and damaging the alliance with the Federation.
I'm sure the Praetor would have just leaked that everywhere.
So instead, she decided to rely on her own hacking skills, which she now realizes were probably not up to the task of breaking into the secret database of the Tal Shiar.
I should note that it says Praetor Neral was previously seen as Proconsul Neral in the Next Generation episodes Unification 1 and 2. However, in there he was played by a completely different guy. And once again, it's not like, now that guy wasn't available. When someone asked Raul D. Moore about it, he was like, yeah, we thought about using that guy, but then we decided to go in another direction.
And I think didn't Sloan or Bashir, someone even did say he used to be proconsul, right?
Yeah.
So that part, I guess they got consistent. Not the part about the quickening. But Koval is like, but wait, there's more. I have a surprise witness. And he has his goons drag in Sloan, who's clearly been worked over. And then Koval says that under interrogation, Sloan revealed that he's actually just a normal member of Starfleet intelligence, a protege of the late Vice Admiral Fujisaki, and he invented the whole Section 31 thing as a smokescreen for his personal rogue operation to assassinate Koval for revenge.
Which, that would be actually a hell of a thing if, like, a year ago, he approached Bashir and put him through all that stuff with, like, the secret holodeck ship and the goons and things, because he knew that someday Bashir would have an in on Romulus to get close to Koval. Like, wow.
Right.
That is some 5D chess that guy's playing.
Yep. He's really in on this revenge plot. Koval wraps up these revelations by saying that Kretak was probably in on the assassination attempt. And then the Praetor says, interesting. Okay, so let's do this.
Or maybe she's just dumb is the other option that he gives. So
Yeah, so the Praetor is like, okay, so Kretak is under arrest and will go on trial for treason. Bashir gets to go home for some reason, and we'll hold on to Sloan for further interrogation. And then Sloan is like, no, and he grabs a guard's gun, and then Koval shoots him, and he's vaporized.
Yep.
Sloan is dead. Well, not actually.
I mean, it's not like we've ever seen a Next Generation episode where people can fire a gun at you and that gun transports you away.
Well, they're not expecting that. They're not suspicious of that. Or I don't know. Back on the Bellerophon, on the way back to Deep Space Nine, Bashir sits in his quarters thinking, wait a second, he thinks. That whole thing was incredibly stupid. It makes no sense.
Yes, I love where it's like, wait a second, none of that made sense. Yep.
Then he goes to Admiral Ross's office, or whatever, and says, where's Sloan? And Ross says, I don't know what you're talking about. And then Bashir says, nobody smart enough to pull the wool over my eyes would be so easily caught by the Romulans. And then Ross is like, I don't know how to tell you this. It was not difficult to pull the wool over your eyes.
Okay, yeah. It's hilarious that he's got his moment of like, none of this... And you go along with that because you're like, you're right. That didn't make sense. And then he gets there and he's like, I am way too smart to have fallen for something like that. And you're like, oh, my dude. Like, that's your linchpin on this theory? Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's how he figured it out. His intellectual vanity. Then Ross and Bashir take off their comm badges, which I guess is the sign that this conversation is now off the record or something.
Yeah, I think first time we've ever had that happen, but...
Then Bashir does the grand reveal speech of all the stuff he should have realized long ago, like as it was happening. It was Admiral Ross that planted the idea that Sloan had an accomplice, and Admiral Ross that forbade him from talking to anybody in Starfleet about what's going on, leaving him no choice but to talk to Kretak. And then Ross is like, yeah, you got me. Sloan was beamed out a split second before he was shot.
Or maybe not, I don't know.
He was supposed to have been. Koval works for Section 31 and has been passing intelligence to Starfleet for over a year, which frankly is a pretty good get.
I mean, that's an amazing get. Yeah, like the head of the other guys. Yeah, no, that's pretty good.
There's really nothing better than having the enemy chief of intelligence on your side.
Yeah, although I think we find out in Picard, like the chief of Starfleet intelligence is actually working for Romulans. So I don't, because I don't remember if it was like the Romulan government or if it was just like that weird subsect of Romulans that were dedicated to stopping AI, or I don't remember, but I just remember that she was a Vulcan, but it turns out she was a Romulan or something.
I don't think I saw that season.
Oh, that was season 1. So I guess sorry, spoiler.
I'm good. But yeah, so now Koval is going to be on the continuing committee, and he's going to have access to even more stuff. Unless, of course, he was manipulating us the whole time for his own ends. But let's not think about that.
No, yeah, I'm sure that couldn't possibly be the case.
Bashir is upset at Ross for setting up Kretak, whom Bashir calls an innocent person. And Ross is like, obviously you weren't there for the whole Bajoran missile crisis thing. Also, I told you, Kretak is a patriot of Romulus, not the Federation.
Yeah, like, keep up, dude.
We don't need enemy patriots in control of the enemy government. We need Weasley self-interested traitors. I don't know why you would have interpreted my description of Kretak as a patriot as a good thing.
Yeah, it makes you wonder exactly what they do have on Koval that has got him leaking information to the Federation, because is he in it for the money? Is he... It goes. It's like a Cold War thing where they have like the list of things that you can get people on. They're either they want money, they want to feel important, or they have like, you know, legitimate political beliefs in this other system or whatever. And I'm just like, I don't know which one of these boxes Koval could be ticking, honestly. But we don't know him that well, so
maybe he does believe that the Romulans and the Federation need to be on the same page, and he's just passing them the intelligence that he thinks they need or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, Bashir asks Ross how long he's worked for Section 31, and Ross says he doesn't, but this is war, and you gotta do what you gotta do when people are out there dying. And then he quotes the episode's title, which means, in times of war, the law falls silent. Cicero. Bashir accuses Ross of turning the Federation into a 24th century Rome, where Caesar can do no wrong, and it's like, no, that's not what I was saying.
I was like, I feel like you've gone a little far here. Like, you have a point in your perspective, but we've gone a little far afield at this moment.
Who even is Caesar in this analogy?
Yeah, right.
But then I guess Ross decides that Bashir is just too dumb to talk to, and then he puts his comm badge back on, signaling the end of the conversation.
Yeah, if you're going to be that dumb, then fine. We're finished here.
Back on Deep Space Nine, Bashir is once again awakened in the middle of the night by Sloan sitting creepily in his bedroom.
Like, dude, you can call. Like, at this point. I don't know why we're doing this still.
Sloan goes on a kind of confusing spiel about how Bashir was chosen because he's a good person and could always be counted on to do the right thing, which I guess makes him easier to manipulate or something. Which is bullshit, because it was obviously Bashir's intellectual arrogance that made him such a useful idiot.
Yeah, in some ways, we've definitely established that was in fact the case.
And then Sloan says some nonsense about how Bashir represents all the good people of the Federation that Section 31 is fighting to protect. And then Sloan walks out the door and Bashir hits a button and calls security. And then he pauses and says, "Never mind, my mistake," and then he hangs up, indicating that part of him now agrees with Sloan, or he doesn't know what to think or something.
Or he's just like, it's way too late to catch that guy. Like, I was right behind him last time and he was gone, so...
Yeah, well, I suspect he's actually just too embarrassed to tell anyone what happened. So, the end.
He should be, yeah. just putting that out there. So, notes about the origin of the story, or other versions of the story. So, initially, it says the plan was for Bashir to fool Sloan and then expose him.
Ooh, that would have been cool.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly would have made Bashir look smarter than he comes off. But early on in the process, Moore was like, oh no, it's way better if we make Bashir think that he's duping Sloan, but in reality, Sloan is duping him. And I was like, well, I don't know that Bashir ever felt like he was getting one over on Sloan in this episode, but I can see how that would have been good.
Yeah, I never felt like Bashir was ever one step ahead of Sloan at any point, or even had cause to believe he was.
No. No. So he says, like, the trick we came up with was to really lead him along and make it look to the audience like he's ahead of the game. Make the audience believe he's figured it all out, and then telling them, nope, they figured him out. And I'm just like, that would have been good, yeah, but I don't think that's where we ended up.
Yeah.
Shame. It's a shame.
Yep.
But I was thinking this was like the origin of, but no, it actually just says that this episode is very similar in story and theme to John Le Carre's classic Cold War spy novel, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold.
Yep. Which is a book I have read.
Oh, I had never read that, and so I had to go out and read the summary after I read this note, and I was like, "Ooh, it ends a lot more darkly than this episode."
Right.
So.
Yeah. It's basically about like a guy who gets sent to infiltrate the East Germans with the mission of discrediting one guy they supposedly don't like, but the intention the whole time was for him to do such a crappy job that it would actually discredit another person and then raise that other guy to a higher position, which he realizes too late, and then he gets shot trying to escape over the Berlin Wall.
Well, no, according to the thing, the summary that I read, it ends with like him and his girlfriend going over the Berlin Wall, and then she gets shot, and he could make it away, and then he's like, nah, I'm going to go back down, and he gets shot. But also, this novel is the third in a series of this guy's novels dealing with like Cold War spying that involve not the main character of this book, but like a side character of this book is the main character in these previous books.
Yeah,
so.
Smiley,
yeah. So that was interesting. Apparently, this is the first time a Federation starship is seen to visit Romulus.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. You can't be just like crossing the neutral zone all the time.
No, right? Yeah, we almost never get over here. This is the first of only 4 times it says that Romulus is seen from orbit. The planet will not be seen again until Star Trek Nemesis, and then later in an episode of Enterprise. I don't think the Enterprise goes there in that episode, but I think we see it like, here's what the Romulans are doing while this is happening.
Sure, yeah.
Also, the only episode of Deep Space Nine, it says, where we see the new style dress uniforms that were created for Star Trek Insurrection.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. That's what it says anyway. We got to be on the lookout for now. If we see those white dress uniforms pop up, call them out.
Right, exactly. We gotta prove these memory alpha guys wrong.
What else? We have a note from Ira Stephen Bear saying that he's a little bit disappointed with how it turned out. He says, it's an excellent show, but it doesn't have all the levels that it should have. We thought we'd do a show about the compromising of Bashir. Unfortunately, it doesn't do that. At the end, Bashir winds up making an angry, pointed speech to Ross, which is a lot less interesting than, say, the end of The Pale Moonlight, where there's a man trying to deal with his own culpability. This is a show demanding that I felt Bashir's culpability, and in the end, he gets to walk away clean by pointing the finger at someone else and being like, no, this is all on you.
Right. Well, also, Bashir didn't really do anything, like, bad. He just kind of got, like, tricked into bumbling around and doing some various things, so...
Also, he was, like, following express orders from his commanding officer to, like, go along with this thing, so... It would also have been a more interesting episode if Bashir somehow did do something wrong and was in some way culpable for what's going on. I agree with Ira Stephen Bear that would have been good. That's not what happened.
Right.
David Livingston said that this is not really a Star Trek show. I read it and I said, God, this is all just talk. Ronald Moore writes wonderful talk, but it was all talk. I was surprised that it came off as compelling as it did. But it's the writing. It's Ron. It's the characterizations.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, there's definitely not really any action going on here. So. Yep.
I mean, a guy did get shot at the end, so that was kind of exciting. But
there's not even really like a crazy sci-fi premise. It really is like just kind of a talky piece.
Yep.
There's a bit of a trial at one point, but that's as exciting as we get. That's also where the shooting happens, I guess. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even so much a trial. It's just like a like what's going on here meeting.
Yeah.
They're like, we'll have this trial later.
The guy, Barry Jenner, who plays Admiral Ross, comments on Ross's motivations, saying he'd do anything to save the Federation. And here he puts so much value on the success of the war effort that he's willing to do things that might not be thought of as honest and above board. He's willing to
Sure.
bend the rules behind the scenes and go through some soul searching to defend the integrity of the Federation. So, I mean,
Sure.
yes, that does seem to be what's happening.
Yep. Hardly a new, thing for Deep Space Nine, but...
That is true, yeah. But yes, that's pretty much all the notes there.
All right. So we can jump into reviews.
Yep, what did you think of Inter Arma Enim Sealant Leges, or however they pronounced it? See, it's not good. If it's hard to say the name of the episode, then you need to change it to something else.
But okay, so yeah, clearly this episode is advancing that theme, or at least trying to, of morality gets really gray during wartime.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I think this time around the execution feels a little muddled, especially compared to In the Pale Moonlight. Because in the Pale Moonlight, we kind of beautifully showed Sisko's journey of kind of discovering exactly what he was willing to tolerate for the greater good.
Yeah.
Even though, he got tricked, but he quite willingly made a deal with the devil. And then even after he was bamboozled, he realized his big moment was when he realized he was fine with it. Like, he could live with it. In this one, Bashir just kind of stupidly lets himself get dragged around the chessboard like a pawn or something like that. And then at the end, it seems he knows even less about himself than he did before. So I don't know. There's just something kind of unsatisfying about it. Kind of as we touched on a little bit, the most interesting character to me is Admiral Ross, who obviously has gone through kind of his own In the Pale Moonlight journey. And again, Admiral Ross, he's clearly decided what he's about, and he's taking ownership of his own actions and, his reasons for doing it.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to he's just like, no, you're right. He seems kind of in that same position Sisko was in, where he's like,
right.
No, I did what I think is right. I would do that again.
Yep.
Even if it's not, the best.
If he had to do some soul searching, he did that before, and now he knows himself and what he's all about now. I think I would have preferred to see Bashir come out of this more certain than ever that right is right, and you have to be really careful about bending the rules. I think it would have been cool if kind of this incident provided a moment of doubt where he was like, man, is this what we have to stoop to? And then kind of can reconsider his perspective from kind of a point of view he hadn't before, and then realize, wait, no, I was right. I do not stand for this. Somebody has to stand against this and be the voice of right versus wrong.
No, it's the children who are wrong.
So I think that would have been really cool, kind of as a counter thing to the arc that Sisko went through in the Pale Moonlight.
Not sure, that could have been an interesting counterpoint. That's
He's you can be the moral gray area people. I am going to be the right and wrong guy, and maybe we can come to a happy balance or something like that.
That would have kind of reinforced Sloan's whole thing at the end, where he's like, yeah, we recruited you because you are that guy.
Uh-huh.
And so, because you are that guy, we are able to manipulate you.
Not in a way where he necessarily is just being manipulated all the time because he's so naive, but he's like, hey, look, I understand what you're doing, but I can't get behind it or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought that would have been a way better, given all the stuff we've done before with this kind of theme. I think that could have made an interesting new direction to take it. But I don't know. Maybe we should just take this episode as a beat in kind of a larger character arc. I don't know. But yeah, all that being said, it is an entertaining enough episode, and I am glad to be back doing some good old Deep Space Nine type stuff. I'm happy to see Sloan again and get back into this Section 31 stuff, even if it does feel a little wonky. I'm glad to be in like all the political intrigue stuff and the kind of Dominion War related stuff. So overall, I did enjoy the episode. So I will go ahead and give it a commander.
Okay.
Even if with all those like
caveats.
Yeah. But anyway, What do you think?
So I'm going to start at the other end and say that there's a lot of stuff in the episode that I think is good. And you pointed out several of the points that I would hit on, where we're moving into the bigger story now, but we're also getting into some interesting areas, I think, of that we don't see a lot of in Star Trek, is these like intelligence type stuff. The places, because there is Starfleet intelligence. That is a thing. Like, they have people doing spy work. They have counterintelligence, and it's an area that we never get to see much of. And I think probably because it is almost by definition a very morally gray area, regardless of what side you're on.
Mm-hmm.
And Star Trek doesn't often focus heavily on the morally gray areas. You couldn't do a whole series, at least not in the 90s, where it's a very gray Star Trek.
Sure.
Deep Space Nine got a few really good moments doing that, but you couldn't have done it as an entire series. So I think it's interesting to get into that. It's interesting to look at more of how this alliance with the Romulans works, because honestly, this is in the universe that we're in, this is a historic thing that the Klingons and the Romulans and the Federation have an alliance going. Like, I'm interested in seeing more of the ins and outs of how that works, because we've never seen something like that before. And these are three groups with very different perspectives, very different. I mean, just looking at that meeting, Kira was kind of representing the Federation in some ways, unless Worf was representing both the Klingons and the Federation. I don't know. But, maybe O'Brien
was there too.
Yeah, I was like, is O'Brien repping the Federation here? That seems like a weird ask of him, but whatever. Those meetings are bound to be interesting every time.
Sure.
So, like, I could do with more of that. This is the kind of stuff that we could have focused on as this season has gone, or even the end of last season, if we were more focused on the big overall story and less focused on, random standalone episodes that have popped up. I think that we could have done interesting stuff there. Same thing with Section 31. Honestly, it was weird for me to realize, looking back at Deep Space Nine, Section 31 is a big thing. They introduced this thing that goes on to have importance in other places. And I think realizing that this is the second time that it's come up, and we are right at the end of the series. I was like, wow, was it really did it really take this long to go anywhere? So that's another thing that I'm glad we revisited that. I could have done with more of that before now. So it's picking up a lot of very interesting threads that I like and I want to see more of. And I like the idea even of, there's no reason we need to always be on the Defiant. There's lots of cool Federation ships that we could be spending some time on, but for budgetary reasons don't. So I liked having us on a different ship, having us even bringing in some secondary characters like Ross, and maybe even you'd call him a tertiary character, but like developing him some. Mm-hmm. That was fun. I almost wish that we could have come up with an excuse to get Garrick here, because that would have made things really interesting. Garrick would not have been fooled by the really like amateur hour stuff that Bashir was fooled by, so maybe you couldn't have done that. Yeah. But anyway, so yes, lots of good stuff, lots of good bits, but also there's a lot of like eye-rolling things, and it's just like you covered a lot of it. We covered a lot of it in the episode, but it's just like I feel like the show wants us to believe that Bashir is like, secret agent Julian Bashir. He's really good at this stuff, and he's not. Right. And it's just like blatantly transparent that he's not. And so maybe that's on the writing, but and there were so many little tweaks that they talked about in the notes that I read, that you brought up some other ideas, little tweaks that could have really made it hit better. That if we're going for In the Pale Moonlight, well, let's do that and not like pull it back. and be like, no, Bashir's the good guy though. Like, are we not past that at this point? If Cisco, the captain, can, get a little dirty, why can Bashir not do the same? Why does he have to wag his finger at Ross at the end and take the morally superior stance? I liked your idea about, like, well, why doesn't he come up and take the opposite road from Cisco? And you think he's going down that same way. He has that introspection, and then he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, that would have been interesting. It also would have been interesting if he had a similar arc to Cisco. It would have been a little bit repetitive, where he's like, he comes to realize, like, sometimes you got to do some shit if you want to survive, or if you believe in the Federation and want them to survive. Like, does he actually find himself agreeing with Section 31 a little bit at the end and understanding, okay, maybe I get why they do some of the things they do, big picture wise.
Sure.
Either way would work for me. We didn't go either way. We kind of, like, were scared to go down either path, and so we didn't take either one. So, yeah, there's lots of areas where it could have been better, but overall, I think it's an enjoyable thing. There's enough interesting, enough threads being pulled up that this is an episode that I like to watch. I would watch again.
Sure.
And so I'm going to also give it a commander, I think.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I almost don't know what it is. There's just something watchable about the episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
I maybe the pacing feels right, or I don't know. There's enough, like, new stuff and new characters and interesting talk going on.
Yeah.
I'd also agree that I think there's several storylines that I thought these were, like, way more developed by this point in the show.
Mm-hmm.
In, like, Section 31 is one of them. Like, it's like, oh, this is like only our second time with Section 31. So that's kind of interesting. And it's fun seeing our Starfleet people on Romulus too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's something new and fun. But let's see. You got any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Just hey, show, let's do more like this. Let's get back into the big story.
Right.
I say, knowing that I think the rest of the series is a big, like, 9-part arc or something. Spoiler, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just refreshing to be back in it. Like, okay,
yep,
we're doing it now. Yeah, so that's our discussion of Inter Arma Enim Sealant Legis. Thanks for listening. If you like that one, maybe you'll like our discussion of The Quickening, the episode that Ronald D. Moore apparently didn't remember at all.
Yeah, go back and listen to that one. We love Bashir in that one, I think.
Yeah, that was a great Bashir. I think that was maybe my favorite Bashir episode.
It is, I don't know if I'd say my favorite Bashir episode, but it is definitely, like, a quintessentially Bashir episode where he's full of himself, he thinks he can do it, and then you get that part of him, but then you also get the part where after he realizes that it's not so easy, he, like, is so dedicated and single-minded. Yeah, it is Bashir at his Bashiriest in a lot of ways, but without the creeper stuff, which is also an integral part of Bashir, but that I can do without.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, if you go watch that episode, listen to our review wherever you're listening to this, and if you want to leave us a comment, you can do that on the YouTube channel, and maybe we'll see it and say, hey, good comment.
Or, hey, bad comment. I don't know how Fletcher usually responds to the comments. I read them sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, my name is Fletcher, about to say goodbye as Data.
See ya.
We look forward to seeing you next week on Undeclared Bajor. But remember, always look gift horses squarely in the mouth. And find that cloud in every silver lining.
Yep.